All right, guys, welcome to another night of Summer Empowerment Week. It is Thursday, and we are just enjoying all those good vibes, soaking in the fact that it's almost Friday. We've had such a great week so far. We've talked about history of disability, advocacy. We talked about the psychology of change, and then we even did a fun painting session. And tonight is going to be even more exciting. We've been dabbling a little bit more into the adaptive sports. That's what you guys were kind of asking for. You guys were looking for more sports resources. So we heard and we filled the need. So we are joined by our lovely friend Annijke tonight. And she's on the West Coast, if I am correct. Yep, she's over, I'm pretty sure, with Lindsay, over in the Cali side. And so without further ado, actually, I want to thank both our presenter real quick. Thank you so much for donating your time, for coming here and sharing your story and everything. But then thank you guys for joining in tonight. I know you guys have busy schedules. It's summertime. Everyone wants to be outside. So thank you guys for tuning in and for joining us tonight. So on that note, finally, I'm going to hand it over to our wonderful host. She can give us a little bit about herself, how she got into the sport, and then all the fun resources. If you guys have any questions, I will be monitoring the chat. Just to save on the Wi-Fi band, I'm going to turn my camera off, but I will be here monitoring everything from the sidelines. So without further ado, Annijke, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And however you want to share, let us know and let us know what we can do.
Great. Thank you so much. Really excited to be here. Really excited to be able to share more of my story. So let me get it so I can see my screen as well here. Let's see. Great. All right. So yeah, thanks everyone once again for joining today. My talk is going to be about my path to becoming a para off-road cyclist. So my name is Annijke Wade, and once again, really excited to be able to share with you today and excited to connect with you all after as well. So a little bit about me. I'm an adaptive athlete. I ride both mountain and gravel bikes. I advocate for Black, Indigenous people of color and also individuals with disabilities in the outdoor space, more specifically for mountain biking. And then I also work outside of mountain biking, although my Instagram feed is pretty much only of me biking. I do have a life outside of it, I swear. And so I work for a company that works with satellites. Look, there's me. I'm not in cycling clothes, so it's a rare picture of me in a suit on a stage. But a little bit about how I got here. So, I haven't always been disabled. I acquired a disability. So back in 2021, I was training for a multitude of mountain bike races and gravel races. I had been cycling for about 4 years at that point, getting very serious into cycling. You can see me on the left on my gravel bikes, and on the right, various just different mountain bike pictures. But that year in particular, 2021, I was training quite a bit for mountain bike races. I used to go to a resort called Angel Fire Resort in New Mexico, just outside of Taos in Angel Fire, New Mexico. And when I was there, I was just, I would ride the bike park, and I was just there for a weekend, kind of a routine weekend of hanging out at the bike park with friends, having a good time. Went for my first run of the day. You take the lift up, and then you ride your bike down. And I went on a trail that I've been on about 70 times, and it was a warm-up lap. And I hit a jump and hit the jump a little bit too wonky, started to fly in the air and landed. And I thought, well, okay, I need to dump some speed because I feel really out of control. And I didn't want to get to the next feature. But unfortunately, I was not able to dump enough speed. And I ended up falling. And the next thing I remember is lying in the middle of the trail with my face down. I had almost immediately could tell that something was wrong. I could not feel anything below my chest. And that's when I realized that things were really bad. I said to the person I was with, hey, I need some help. And she said, sure, let's just stand up and we'll get you out of the middle of the trail. And I was like, I can't stand, yeah. And so we spent the better half of that day trying to get me from the mountain to a hospital. And then I was eventually airlifted to UNMH hospital. And I found out 3 days later what had happened, that I had a spinal cord injury and that I was going to be a full-time wheelchair user. And as you know, probably the chances of walking were relatively slim. So what happened after that? Well, I went to UNMH Hospital, University of New Mexico Hospital in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And as soon as I found out I had a spinal cord injury, I said, you know what? I actually follow a couple of people online that have spinal cord injuries and that are active. So I want to get back on a mountain bike. So day 3 in the hospital, I decided I'm going to get back on a mountain bike. And I knew what type of bike I wanted. But then, of course, I had to, wait in the hospital to go to rehab. So I was in the hospital for 17 days. And then I went to rehab at Craig Hospital, in Englewood, Colorado, just outside of Denver, and where I had to learn how to live again, right? So everything is focused on learning how to live in a chair, learning how to live with this new body. And obviously, rehab was hard. But it was also, fun. I also got to do some fun things, bake cookies, meet some nice people, explore a little bit of campus. Yes, eat donuts. And, as you probably all know, extended hospital stays mean your whole life has to be put on hold. So everything I was working on that previous year or that year with training for bike races, with advocacy, everything had to be put on hold. So here are just some pictures. There's me with one of my friends, Candy, in the hospital. There weren't very many women at Craig Hospital. So that was really exciting that I had somebody that I could talk to that was like in my rehab class. And eventually they did start a women's group when we had enough women available in the hospital. So that was really fun. And then of course, every single day I was just learning how to try to balance, learning how to sit up, learning how to live life again. But I made it my focus in rehab to really stay focused on mountain biking, right? Like I knew I wanted to get back on a bike. And in so many ways, that's what helped me get through, was thinking about what am I going to do when I get out of the hospital? I didn't know if I was going to have a ramp here or grab bars there. I was solely focused on getting on a bike. Obviously I was working on my transfers and stuff like that, but it was more in line with like, how is this going to help me get back to doing the things that I love to do? So adaptive mountain biking had a profound impact on my recovery. It gave me, like I said, a sense of purpose, right? I felt like when I was in the hospital, even though the most tragic thing had happened to me, I had something to look forward to. I was looking forward to getting on a bike, to hanging back with my friends, getting back in nature. And then I started talking to adaptive mountain bikers when I was still in the hospital. So I had a couple, kind of famous, adaptive mountain bikers call me in the hospital, set up Zoom calls. And that really helped me too, because it allowed me to just, once again, keep my eyes on the prize and really stay focused, because there were days in rehab that were really hard. I mean, learning how to do, shower transfers, thinking about all of the loss, that you have, the grief. But adaptive mountain biking really just helped me, think about the future and what my life was going to be like. And it also allowed me to connect with my community, right? So I was starting to build a new community of adaptive mountain bikers. But then I also had all of these other friends that I had mountain biked with in the past. And so having this like continuous thread allowed me to stay in touch with the activity I wanted to do and feel like I still had a place kind of in my world.
You're able to blend them together too.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I think one of the biggest things that has helped me through the process of healing, and something I still think about daily, is this idea of acceptance, right? And I think of acceptance as a daily task. Some days you don't want to accept what's going on, right? And that's okay. We're allowed to have those days. But accepting what's happened to me has allowed me to move forward in my life. I could sit there and say, well, it's not the same as it used to be. I want to go back to coaching like I used to, adapt or mountain bikes. Now I can't ride the same trails or have the same skill level. But for me, it's like I'm going to accept the fact that I have this injury, accept the fact that I'm going to be in a wheelchair, I'm not going to be walking. And now that allows me to set my own narrative and set my new path, right? That acceptance has allowed me to free up my life because I'm not thinking about the past. I'm thinking about the future and the present and where I want to be and how I want to show up.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So a little bit about how I picked my first bike. As I mentioned, I was still in the hospital when I decided I wanted to do adaptive mountain biking. I was following Trevor Kennison, who probably a lot of us know, an amazing adaptive athlete. And he was riding a bike called the Bowhead Reach, and he was riding it at like downhill mountain bike parks. And so I was like, well, if Trevor has a spinal cord injury and he's an adaptive rider, maybe that's a bike that would work for me. And so I started to do some research while I was in the hospital, and I wanted to find a bike that worked for my disability. So I'm a T5. I was a T5 complete when I entered the hospital. Since then, I have a little bit more function, but I wanted to find something that was going to body that I have. I also prefer a particular type of riding. So my accident happened while I was downhill mountain biking. So I wanted to be able to get back to that downhill kind of aggressive style of mountain biking. And I wanted a bike that would allow me to ride the types of trails I wanted. And so something maybe with articulation, like lean. And then bike width was really important to me. I wanted a bike that was narrow enough so that I could interact with the trails that my friends were riding, because a lot of one of the more challenging parts about adaptive mountain biking is finding, trails or trying to scout trails that might work for our bikes. And then I knew I wanted suspension because, once again, I love to ride downhill. And then I also wanted something that was all electric because being a wheelchair user means you're using your arms quite a bit. And I wanted to be able to get outside and not have to worry too much about, hand cycling and overusing my shoulders in the first couple of years. So I chose,
Can I ask a quick question?
yeah.
Does it have two tires in the front and then one in the back? I just looked
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, my bike has 2 tires in the front, 1 in the back. It's got, shocks and suspension. It's got 3 of them. So
Okay.
it rides really well. So it works really well for like handling bumps. It's got larger, knobbier tires. This particular bike is all electric.
Okay.
So you charge it. It can go, I think you can go as far as like 37 miles on a charge.
Oh, wow.
For an elevation gain. It can also go fast, but I ride like, safely and the speed that I want to. And I still, yeah, and I still wear, my helmet and protective gear and all of that. Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So I got my bike just 3 months after my spinal cord injury and my accident. So I was really, really lucky. That first year, or that year of my accident, I actually was a sponsored athlete. So one of the brands that was my sponsor, Pearl Izumi, who makes a bunch of cycling clothing, actually bought me my bowhead. And then I also got a grant from High Fives to cover like the shipping and some of the accessories as well. So I got really, really, really lucky because, as you know, these pieces of equipment are not cheap at all. So once I got my bike, it was time to learn how to ride again. So the picture on the left is actually from my first mountain bike ride. I went out with my friend Pierre Bergman. We met each other in rehab hospital. He was one of the mentors, the peer mentors that used to come to wheelchair skills clinic class, and I knew he was a really good mountain biker, and he was actually injured mountain biking too, so we had that in common.
That's
And
cool.
so yeah, so I said, Pierre, all right, I got my bike. will you teach me how to ride it? And so we went out to a field and a little bike park, a little in town, bike park with jumps and hills and all of that and corners. And he was teaching me how to ride. And I remember I tipped over. So I was actually still in a back brace from the hospital when I got my bike. And I had to take my back brace off to sit in the bike and ride it. And I tipped over, about half an hour into the lesson. And my then partner at the time, I was like, oh, he's going to kill me because here I am. I just got out of the hospital for breaking my back, mountain biking, and here I am already falling over and tipping. And I was like, oh, geez, but he was fine. But I mean, the reality is, learning a sport is hard and you are going to fall. But yeah, so that was kind of, that was my first ride.
Keeping it spicy.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to check this chat too, because I forgot I had it closed. 1 second. Yes, we have. Yeah, you have to try this bike at camp next year.
Sorry, Annijke. I have a question, babe. Were you like scared to get on a bike again? I feel like I feel like I'd be nervous or something, like feel kind of nervous about getting on a bike, but it didn't sound like that. But maybe you do have some of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course there was like, I was nervous. I think, the first time I actually got onto a bike, I was in rehab hospital. So that was a different style bike. That was a very emotional moment, but it also felt really good because I'd like hit my goal. You know what I mean? But that was like a day that was like, it kind of felt like redemption. You know what I mean? It's like, this can't stop me. You know what I mean? And then the second ride, there was a lot of that. It was probably like getting into like my third and fourth and fifth rides that the nervousness and kind of like, honestly, some of the PTSD set in. And it was like, oh, okay. So yeah. And that's something like I have to mitigate. So yeah, that's actually what this whole slide is about, Lindsay. So that's a great segue though, because it's, learning how to ride. It's been a lot like doing a brand new sport, right? So I was a certified mountain bike coach before my accident. So I had a baseline of knowledge, right? Like I know about bike handling skills. I know the terminology, the lingo. I know how to think about the trail. But this is a whole new ball game, right? I've got a whole new body. I've got a whole new piece of equipment. And I have this like new life experience that frankly is changing quite a bit, like these things, right? Like it changes my perspective, having had an accident, having been paralyzed, acquiring a new disability. So I have to practice a lot of patience with myself. And there have been some instances where I have started to ride trails or got mountain trails and just gotten so freaked out, and sometimes PTSD that sets in, and you're just like, wow, this is something. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it over this feature. And so kind of like part of that, Lindsay, is what I do is like, I have to just be really gentle and kind with myself. And in the beginning, it was just about being patient, starting off small, always staying kind of comfortable. Not to say I'm not growing my skills and expanding, but being, developing those skills in a comfortable manner for myself. So I went to British Columbia the first year after my accident. For my anniversary of my accident, I went to an adaptive mountain bike race in British Columbia to meet all of the adaptive mountain bikers that I'd been Zooming, with, and all these professionals. And to me, that was really important for my journey, because I was like, I want to get into this world. I want to know what people are up to. And I went to a resort the second or third day. We went to a resort, and the resort didn't have a lot of green trails. Green trails are like the easier trail or beginner trails. They didn't have a lot of beginner trails. So I went on the most beginner trail. It was so steep. It was the steepest thing I've ever seen. And the corners and the turns were so steep too. And I was so scared. I had never been more scared in my life. And I got to a corner, and it was so steep, and I came into the corner incorrectly. And I had to tell my partner at the time, I said, I don't think I can do this. Like, I'm so freaked out. This is way above my skill level. I don't want to die. Like, the fear set in. And so we waited there for about 3 or 4 minutes for somebody else to come along the trail. And we got 3 people to get me out of like this really steep section. And then I just rode down the mountain on one of the fire roads, like the service roads, and got to the base, and I didn't ride anymore. And I saw one of the mountain bikers that I had talked to, when I was in the hospital. I don't know if he knew that I was like having a bad time, but he was like, it's okay to cry sometimes. Like, he's like, we all, get scared. And he's like, he's like, I think it's always hard when you have somebody that knows about mountain biking and then they go out again because they just feel like it's going to be the same, or they're going to have the same skill level. And it's hard not to get into your head around, why can't I do this? Like, this used to be easy, or why am I not at this level of this sport? And he's like, just have to have patience. And that really hit me because I was really self-conscious about having to like bail on the easiest trail. And all of these professionals are like, are you having a great day out there? Are you getting out and riding? And I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I actually just did not even a full lap down the mountain. I just did part of a trail. So that made me feel better. But yeah, it's like, sometimes you just have to listen to yourself and recognize like, look, I'm in the zone of fear and I'm not going to be able to get out of here. And that's totally okay. And you can stop the ride and go home and try the next day. And then other times you're like, I'm pretty sure I could do this. And so sometimes you just have to do the thing. So yeah, I started mountain biking. And as you know, I am in like the kind of professional mountain biking space. So here's some of what I did. Yeah. And 1% better every day. Just slow and steady wins the race with mountain biking. You don't need to go off huge jumps. You get to set the pace of what you want to do. So in 2022, a year after my accident, I was able to do all sorts of stuff related to sport, mountain biking. So here's just kind of some of the stuff I did. I do a lot of like speaking engagements, writing, and blogs, and I started consulting for adaptive mountain biking as well. And then in 2023, I had another really big biking year. This year, or that particular year, I had 2 films that premiered. So I'm in a couple, cycling related films. And then I also did, like my own cycling events. And then I also launched my initiative called Dirtbound, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then this year, I'm back. I'm in the middle of my mountain bike season right now. So I'm fortunate enough to like be able to work with some brands and sponsors and supports. And so a lot of people always ask like, how are you able to go out and do this? And how are you able to do that thing? It's really expensive. And it absolutely is. And I am completely transparent with the fact that I have a full-time job, but I also have support specifically for mountain biking. So I have sponsors that help curb the cost of these things, but I kind of make it my mission to bring more people into the sport and be able to extend what I have to others through my partnerships. So some cool places that I've ridden. So the picture on the left is me riding in Phoenix, Arizona. So Phoenix, Arizona, for those that don't know, has amazing mountain biking. I would suggest not going in the summer because it's a little too hot, but you can go in the winter time, like, February, March is a wonderful time to go ride. If you like baseball too, you could go mountain biking and see spring training, which would be fun. But there's a facility in Phoenix called Ability 360, and Ability 360 has all sorts of really cool things. They've got tennis camps, they've got mountain biking, they've got kayaking, fishing, they've got basketball. The facility is gigantic, but at the facility, they have a mountain bike program. And so you are able to go and utilize some of their bikes through Ability 360 and High Country Adaptive. and you can go ride in Phoenix, and it's absolutely beautiful. They do beginner lessons. So I was in Phoenix for a women's mountain biking clinic 2 years ago, and then, or I guess last year. The picture in the middle is me in Canada. That's me at it's a mountain resort called Fernie Resort. It's in Fernie, BC. And that was the 1 year anniversary of my accident. So it was really exciting for me to be in a new place, to get to ride in Canada. My best friend also lives in the area, so it was perfect because she came and visited me in the hospital too. So it felt, really special to be able to share that with her. And then that last picture on the right, that was taken probably about, I guess, 1 month ago. I was in my first adaptive mountain bike race. I've done gravel races from Adaptive World, but it was my first adaptive mountain bike race. So I was in Washington State, in the town of Snoqualmie. Yeah, and
My heart. That's my favorite. I was born in Seattle. It's my heart.
oh,
I
cool.
don't live there right now, but I wish I did. I wish I was there now.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was me racing there, and oh my God, it was so much fun. It was so beautiful. One of the things that I love about mountain biking is I'm able to take my bike and go anywhere, right? I have a special rack on my car that allows me to load it. And I can see so many amazing, beautiful places in nature, and connect with so many people just by using my bike.
So do you drive most of the places?
I do, yeah. So I do that mostly because I am bringing my bike, but you can fly with your bikes too, because you just call them like adaptive wheelchair, or you just call them like off-road wheelchairs. So
Okay.
when you fly with the equipment, it's always important that you use like mobility device or wheelchair. You never say like, this is a mountain bike, because then they're like, oh, we're gonna charge you extra. Because technically it is an off-road mobility device. So yeah, you can fly with your bikes. Absolutely.
Annika, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
If you flew with your bike, what would, I guess, like the thing would be like, how do you then, when you get to the airport, wherever you're going, how find someone to help you transport it? You know what I mean? Like you have to probably like go ahead and have somebody that has, because it's pretty big, right? So you need like a special, what's it called? The thing that you carry it in, the hitch. Like you have a special hitch, right? So it's like you'd have to have someone have that, or could they put it in like a truck, or
yeah, they can put it in a truck. I mean, the bike weighs, like my bike weighs 96. One of them weighs 96 and the other weighs 106 pounds. So they're very heavy. So yeah, that Lindsay, what you're talking about there is like one of the biggest barriers to flying with your bike is what happens when you get to your destination.
Yeah.
And so if you were traveling with a bike and you're going to like an adaptive sports clinic or something, the adaptive society or club will probably be able to help you. I know some people that have rented kind of like vans, big vans, and if they're traveling with an able-bodied person, that able-bodied person can help them get the bike into the van. Or the same with kind of like those kind of like U-Haul vans.
But most people try to drive it there just because flying and getting it there is just so questionable.
It's a harder piece of logistics to figure out. I haven't flown with my bike yet. I plan to, but it's hasn't
so tricky.
It hasn't come up, and most of the time if I'm going somewhere far,
it's cool that you have it all set up on your car that you can just travel, drive with it. That's awesome.
Was that an expensive setup to get like all situated on your car?
Yeah, so I have a new rack it was like 2,100. So yeah, it is expensive, but
what kind of car do you have?
I have a Crosstrek, a Subaru Crosstrek.
Okay.
And my rack is electronic and it goes up and down, so it'll carry the bike vertically. And so I don't have to do any heavy lifting or anything. So it's really good for a lot of different disabilities, that particular rack. And you just get it wired to your car. And I can do it all myself independently.
That's awesome.
So I can just open up my garage door, I roll my bike out, put it on the rack, use the ratchet straps, and it pulls it up, and then I'm good to go. So that's the nice part about that particular rack. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's me riding in Arkansas. I've got the person that's riding behind me is like a shadow rider or a tail gunner or support rider. So that's something you can do with adaptive mountain biking, because if you were to tip over or fall or need help, for those that can't stand or non-ambulatory, it's a little bit more difficult and challenging. And so you'll often ride with somebody on the trail that can help get you out of those sticky situations.
I was gonna ask, do you always have somebody with you?
For mountain biking, most of the time. Gravel riding, almost none of the time anymore.
Okay.
So gravel, I will show you my gravel bike, but it's like a hand crank bike that has e-assist, still 2 wheels in the front and 1 in the back.
Mhm.
But on those rides, I'm riding on like wider gravel paths, so kind of like dirt roads, you know.
Yeah.
And there's just not as much of a probability of me tipping over because I'm not going on like, you know, trail features and stuff. So yeah. So a little bit about, you know, like what is adaptive mountain biking, right? We're talking about that a lot, but it's basically just a cycling discipline that involves riding mountain bike trails while having a permanent disability or intellectual disability. So that's what that is. And then what's para off-road cycling? So this is my hand crank version of the bike. What I was talking about, it's called a Bowhead RX. And off-road cycling or para off-road cycling, it just means that you are riding off-road, right? Like you're not riding on the road. So it's pretty easy, but a lot of people are like, what is para off-road cycling? I'm like, it just means you're not riding on the road. I like riding off-road because I don't like dealing with cars. I like being in nature. My bike can take me so many places. You know, in my wheelchair, sure, I can go a distance, but not very far. And so when I'm out on my gravel bike in particular, I can go out for a 40 mile ride. I can, you know, ride 30 miles or 40 miles one direction if I wanted, you know, and have somebody pick me up or whatever. But the point is I can get out really far on my own independently. And that to me is a lot of joy.
Yes.
Yeah. So a little bit about my advocacy, because this, you know, this is kind of how I show up in this space is, you know, I was doing a lot of advocating for, you know, Black, Indigenous people of color and women in the mountain bike space before my accident. And one of my friends that I'm in a, you know, a group with, we were in a it's called the Impact Committee. We were in an Impact Committee together. She said, you know, there's better ways to advocate for individuals with disabled besides becoming disabled. Like you didn't have to get a disability to do this. And I was like, you know, you're right. You're right. I think that's funny, Brooke. And I definitely laughed about that. And it's true, but in so many ways, I think of it as a privilege, right? Now I have a new lens, a new outlook, a new perspective to advocate from. And all of my advocacy is really intersectional because, you know, I am a Black woman in the outdoors that's also disabled. So I take a lot of that into account when I'm thinking about how to make access for people or what that looks like. And my primary focus used to be on, you know, people of color in the outdoors, but now it's expanded to include individuals with disabilities. So once again, it's exciting to be able to expand that advocacy for me now. And I think, you know, representation and visibility really is important. I think it's important for us to see more disabled people in all circumstances everywhere in the world. And so a lot of what I do is trying to increase that visibility, right? By showing up in places, by bringing people to events, by, you know, participating in a brand partnership or an ad that, you know, has good reach. So a lot of my approach to advocacy in the mountain bike space is just listening and learning. So, I'm 3 years out from my spinal cord injury and accident, so I've been disabled for 3 years. I certainly don't know everything about the community, probably never will, and so a lot of times I'm focused on trying to figure out what's going on. What are people talking about? What does it look like? Where can I plug in? And then keeping an open mind, right? Like learning about other disabilities, learning how to talk about disability. And then last thing is, partnering with organizations and folks that are doing the work, right? It's so important that we all connect with each other, as like this foundation. There's so many different ways that we can band together. And I think that's so important, right? We don't need to be doing things by ourselves. Like we can come together as community. And I think that's what makes us really strong. So see, there's some of like the organizations and, social media things that I've done. And that's what I'm about. I like to partner with people and meet people and try to see how we can bring more people into this space, into adaptive mountain biking, into para off-road cycling, and get people excited. Because for me, it was so important for me to have that goal when I was in the hospital. And it gave me so much hope and so much light to be able to have that opportunity. And I want to be able to share that with others. So I started last year an organization called Dirtbound. And Dirtbound is a para off-road cycling initiative that aims to empower and develop and support para off-road cyclists. So the whole idea here is that I'm trying to now give back to that cycling world, right? Like I was so lucky to be able to get my first bike 3 months after my accident. That's like unheard of, right? I was also lucky to have experience, already in the mountain bike world. So I'm like, I gotta give back and I've gotta allow more people to come into the sport. So I'm really excited because just last week, I brought a team of 5 para athletes to one of the biggest gravel races in Colorado. And so we brought those athletes there. We were able to provide them with lodging, food, race entries, and travel costs so that they could attend their first race. And that was so exciting. And so it was really exciting to see that. We had monthly calls leading up to the race to talk about biking gear, how to stay hydrated, how to stay fueled, what does racing look like. And then when we got to the event, we got to do a skills clinic, meet a bunch of people. And it was a very good community building event, right? We all got to hang out with each other. And then we also got to show folks that aren't disabled what it's like for us to show up as well, right? And talk about our bikes, our experiences, and show people, look, we're just like you, right? We might be using a different piece of equipment, but we are just like you. We're here to ride, have a good time, and be a part of the community, which I think is so, so important. And so I'll announce to you guys first, but next year we are going to do a couple mountain bike camps in California. And so the focus for these camps, there will be probably women's focused camps. We might expand to more, but I want to start, having smaller camps where we can mountain bike and craft and eat pasta and do all of the fun things and generally just get people excited to be outdoors. I think there's so many people want to know, how can I get into the sport? What does it look like? How can I do this independently? Or what's my comfort level? And and I think that's what this is going to be about. It's going to be about having a great, entry into this sport, right? And allowing people to become comfortable with the equipment and get to experience something new or get to experience something in a different way. So
I'm that girl.
yes, absolutely. And this is kind of like the phrase that I always say, but it doesn't matter what you ride or how you ride, it just matters that you're outside, right? And that's the point, right? my bike, sure, I can do all sorts of crazy things with it, do jumps and all this stuff. But for me, it's just about being outside and being in nature, right? It allows me
I need to
to
get
be on the
outside.
beach with my dog, right? I can go on a ride with my dog. I can connect with my community, go to my local trails or go on the bike path. And it's just healing for me to be outside. I think in so many ways, it's like, especially living with a disability, our lives can be very complex. And there's so many additional things we need to think about and worry about. And setting aside some time to be in nature is just something that I really try to prioritize. I sometimes, don't get out as much as I can, but I always look forward to being able to be outside in nature on my bike. So, yeah. At this point, I'm gonna pass it off and see if there are any questions. I know we've been asking questions along the way, but this is a good point to, yeah, check in and see if folks have questions about adaptive mountain biking.
So I guess my question would be just information about the stuff, the camp stuff. Do you have information on that yet? I know you said you were just announcing it, so.
Yeah, not yeah. So yeah, we haven't even made an official announcement yet. Yeah, so when those details happen, just watch the Dirtbound page and
Okay.
it'll be there. Yeah. And then I think there was a question around in the chat around California. Yeah, so I'm on the Central Coast in Monterey, California, and so I am always happy to take people out with my own bikes. So I have 2 bikes, and so I can take people to the trails very easily, and we can do that. Yeah. Okay, I have a question here from Gretchen on how does bladder capping work on the trails. Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think, full disclosure, I have Mitrofanoff, and before that I had a suprapubic catheter, and I chose those 2 bladder options for myself because I wanted to be mountain biking. And so I wanted to be able to figure out how to do that. But my friends that do kind of traditional intermittent cathing, it's a lot about figuring out, making sure you go to the bathroom right before. So making sure you're at a trail system that has an accessible bathroom, or if you cath in your car or something like that. And then for longer rides, I know some people that actually do cath on the trail. And so it depends on what bike you end up, riding, but there are options to kind of learn how to do that too. So my suggestion for that is if you know bike that you like, if you're interested in getting one, find another, IC cather that rides the same bike and ask them, how are you cathing on the bike? And what does that look like? And how our community is, they'll absolutely answer your question. It's the only community where we could talk about stuff like this and it not be weird, but people would love to help you with that because it is important. Because yeah, I have friends that cath on a bike. I have friends that have put in Foley's for really long bike rides, but that's it's all up to whatever you want to do around that. But you absolutely can cath on the bike in most instances. It's just a matter of kind of like maneuvering and figuring it out. So yeah. Are there any other questions?
I have one. I mean, I think we've talked about this, but I'll just say it because it might be helpful for other people. But
Yeah.
the transfer, because it's a lower bike, like how did that go for you? What was that process like, figuring that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, for me, this was one of the most important parts about having these bikes, right, was to be able to independently transfer. The first like year and a half, I got help transferring from my then partner, because it was hard. Like transfers, in all disclosure, they're not my strongest suit. I work out daily. I'm trying to get better. But it's just kind of like, working out really, it helps, right? So like doing those tricep dips, building up that strength. And yeah, it took a while. My hand crank bike, my RX, that one is even lower. It's not like a full hand cycle where it's that low to the ground, but it's 3 inches shorter than my other bike. And, 3 inches makes all the difference in a transfer. So that one was hard. I was so excited that day that I finally figured out I could do it on my own. Oh my gosh. It felt really good to be like, okay, I can do this independently, but it's a lot of practice. And then if you live by yourself, and you are doing it, you might have to figure out an alternative method, maybe stack some blocks up, or get one of those, bath transfer lifts or something that can kind of help you. There's also, they are kind of expensive, but there's a company called Lasher that makes mountain bikes, and it's like a patient lift system, like one of those bath lift kind of things, but metal. So that can help you get in and out of your bike too. Because that's the hardest part, I think, about hand cycling and para off-road cycling, is like getting in and out of the equipment. And then even for the other parts of it, particular bike, I have to get my legs situated, I have to get my waist strap. And so the first few times that I rode, I mean, that stuff took forever, and now, like, I'm much faster at it, right? Like I have a system down. I kind of know when to lift what leg where and do this and that. So I think it just kind of takes time and for you to get comfortable and used to it. So great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other? Oh yeah.
Oh wait, someone had a question here in the chat. What's a place your bucket list you'd like to bike? And what's your bucket list, girl? What you got?
That's a great question. I don't know. You know what? Actually, I want to ride in Montana. I want to gravel ride in Montana. I want to mountain bike in like North Carolina. Oh yeah, Banff would be fun. Yeah. Where else? Yeah, and I want to do more riding in the Pacific Northwest in like the rainforest. So those are the places. Yeah. Oh, and Chris asked, we did not have a discussion about opportunities across the country and regional meetups, but I think the best thing is finding, an adaptive sports organization that's near you. So I don't know where you're located, but Catalyst Sports is one that's kind of on the southeast, southeastern part of the United States. They have a ton of adaptive mountain bikes. There's another organization called Adaptive Adventures that travels all throughout the country. And they've got over 900 different bikes. They've got mountain and road, but they've got 900 bikes, I think, in total. So they're a great organization to team up with. And then you
know
can.
Anybody in Texas?
What?
Know anyone in Texas? An area?
I'll have to think about that. What part of Texas are you in?
Like Houston?
Okay. I'll have to rack my brain and kind of think
Sorry.
about that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And then, yeah, oh yeah, you're familiar with Adaptive Ventures. Yeah. And so that's the best bet is follow these, adaptive sports organizations on Instagram or look them up online and get connected. The other option too is that sometimes these organizations will have camps. And as you know, a lot of the camps are free for people with disabilities. So, you might be able to go to, Mammoth in Southern California, or, if you are eligible for Kelly Brush Foundation, you could do one of their mountain bike camps. So there are different ways to kind of get connected, because it is really hard to be able to like get access to the equipment, and also to be able to learn how to ride for the first time, and I would definitely suggest, your first ride, go with that adaptive sports organization, and and try it with them first, right? And make sure you're being safe. Or the other option too is if you see an adaptive, mountain biker or gravel cyclist in your area, just send them an Instagram message, and just be like, hey, are you open to letting me try this? Like, or can you give me more information? And most people would say yes, because they want more friends to ride with. And of course they want to, bring more people into the sport. But that's how I feel. I'm like, just send me a message, just come on down. Like we'll go for a ride, and we can hang out. So yeah.
There is an organization, a friend that I met this summer, they do hand cycling in one of the parks around here.
Oh,
And so
cool.
when I call them, they just meet really early and it's like 45 minutes away. So I'm like, it's really hard.
It is.
That's
But
the hard part, but I want to try to go. So
yeah, and maybe you can go that first time, and then maybe they'll tell you about another activity.
we're there a little bit later.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, for me, it's just about connecting with those, organizations and opportunities. And then I know some of us live in places where we don't have, like where I live right now, there's not an adaptive sports organization. So I have to travel like 2 hours to go to like the San Francisco area, but that's why I'm like, well, people want to come down here and ride. I'm always happy to take people out on my bikes and give them a lesson and show what it's like. So yeah. Yeah, and in terms of like grant opportunities and stuff, this is something that comes up a lot. Like like, let's say you want to buy a mountain bike, what does that look like, right? And they are expensive, as I mentioned. So one, try to see if there are any used options for equipment. A lot of people sell things because they decide they don't want it, they don't have space, they can't get out on their own. Maybe they're upgrading their equipment. And then there's a lot of organizations like Challenge Athletes Foundation, High Fives, Kelly Brush, other regional organizations that can help get you funding for these bikes. And you might have to piecemeal it. Oh yeah, Disability Training Zone. You might have to piecemeal it, and then as we know, a GoFundMe, right? There's no harm in trying that. A lot of people have to do that to close the gap on the funding, because you might get $1,000 from this group, $1,000 from another. But there you go. But the other thing too is, there's no shame in using the bikes that the programs have too, right? Those adaptive sports organizations are there for us to use. So, get in good with those people. And sometimes they'll let you even borrow the bikes for a week or two, or go on a trip with them. So don't be afraid to ask, can I take this home for a week? Or can I, go on a separate ride, not just with the big group of people? I'm sure they'd be happy to help. So yeah.
One other question I have, I just realized, if you have maintenance that needs to be done on your bike, like, and you can't do it yourself, what does that look like? Can you bring it to like a normal bike shop and just can they usually like, handle whatever is going on, or is it like hard to get it maintenance if you need it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so most of the adaptive mountain bikes, have most of the parts are bike parts, although there are going to be differences. So I usually suggest that you call the bike shop first and kind of let them know, hey, I've got, this type of bike. I'm an adaptive rider. I always like to throw in, like I'm a full-time wheelchair user or something, because, you want people to do things for you and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, and just not be like, no, you got to play the disability card sometimes. That's when you pull that out, and you're like,
we got to use it.
Yeah, I'm disabled, help me out. And, just explain to them your situation. And most bike shops will be happy to accommodate you. There's also this thing, Lindsay, called like a mobile bike shop. And sometimes, REI is a great place. But a mobile bike shop. So sometimes the people can come to you and your house and repair your bikes. And it's a lot faster than wheelchair repair, guys. So you don't have to wait weeks and weeks. It's not New Motion. You know what I mean? These are people that are, trying to help you. So that's another option. So I actually, I had somebody come in this winter and pick up some of my parts for my bike from my house and go fix them. And then I also have taken my bike into the shop. Sometimes bike shops won't want to work on them. And that's why I say call first, because it would be just such a shame to load up that bike with how long it's going to take you and transfer into your car and all of that just to get there, and then for them to say no. So call ahead, you know. And then as a double, that bike shop can also be the people that can help you with your wheelchair too. So make good relations with your bike shops, because they can help change your flats, your tires, all that kind of stuff, bearings, anything. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
I love all the conversations we've been having. I've been kind of keeping up in the chat just for
Yeah.
purposes, but this has been so great. Does anyone else have any last minute comments or questions for Annijke about her story, biking, patience,
Really great. Thank you.
anything?
Yeah, well, thank you. Really exciting. And yeah, let's connect on Instagram, and those folks like Gretchen and stuff. We can find time to ride in California. And yeah, just watch the Dirtbound page, because we will be making the announcement probably, I don't know, in like a month or so around the camps. So that'll be exciting.
That is so exciting. I'm so excited. Yeah, we'll definitely be watching. So
Yes.
well, thank you everyone for participating and for asking questions and for giving feedback and for chatting with Annijke today, giving her your full-on presence and attention. This was a really fun session. Like I said, we've been trying to dabble more into adaptive sports, and I think this was such a great starter. Especially kind of wrapping up where our camp was just at. So this is kind of like fresh in our minds. This will kind of wrap into everything that we kind of do at our retreat as well. So, so thank you guys all for coming and spending the last hour with us, not only pouring into We With Me as always, but also pouring into yourselves. Make sure you guys check out your local communities. Get your hands on a bike, like she said. Go out and try something new. Feel that freeing adventure again, you know what I mean? And that's something that I got to see a lot at our retreat last month, and I would love for you guys to be able to experience that in your own backyard or in a space that you've been, trying to mark off your bucket list as well. So thank you guys for coming. Annijke, thank you so much for sharing your story. Your story was great. I love that you just you're like, nope, I'm going to keep rolling on. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to figure it out. I will make sure to attach her Instagram information to the post follow-up email. So when you guys get the recording of tonight, you guys will also get her information. Feel free to connect with her, ask any questions. You can also reach out to our email and we can pass those along. So thank you guys all so much for coming tonight. We have one more final night before the week is over with. Tomorrow, me and this lovely, amazing woman named Kim are going to get together and we are going to talk about moving out of state. So I went from Wisconsin to North Carolina and she went from Texas to California. I'm a paraplegic. She is a quadriplegic. I shipped all my boxes and flew one way in an airplane. She has a vehicle and had a moving truck and all the things. So we have very different stories and we're really excited to share our different experiences, answer different questions, give different feedbacks, all of the good things. So if you guys have not registered for tomorrow yet, please feel free to join us. We would love to have you and love to hear any of your input as well. If you've moved and want to share some insight, I'd love that as well. So thank you again for joining us, and we cannot wait to see you for another amazing night. Thank you again, Annijke. Thank you, attendees, and have an amazing Thursday.
Thank you. It was great meeting
Thank
you.
you.
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you.
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.